The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Nicole Hennessy, Vice President of Music Biz. I hope you're all well on this Thursday afternoon. It's beautiful here in the East Coast, so I hope you're experiencing that where you are. Just a few housekeeping ideas before we jump right into it. Yesterday, Music Biz made the announcement that we sadly will be canceling the in-person Music Biz 2020 conference, which was slated originally for May and then postponed until August. We just don't feel that the current state of the COVID crisis will allow our 2,500 attendees to meet face to face this year. And while we're very saddened because our staff and our board and all of our attendees love this event, we are excited because we have been doing some really great Music Biz Live Common Ground webinars over the past couple of months that have really gotten some great traction and great reviews. And we would like, and we will be converting some of our most popular programming from the annual event and our featured presentations to a virtual setting. So working on finalizing a few dates, and we'll put out some more information on that program very shortly. The first one that we did announce in yesterday's release is what ourselves and Record Store Day are calling Couch Camp. It's a virtual version of the Record Store Day Summer Camp for the indie retail community. More information is going to be coming out about that here this afternoon, so be on the lookout for that. A great program for the independent retail community and other folks, labels, managers, to interact with that community. So be on the lookout for that announcement. And also be on the lookout for more Music Biz Lives and more Common Ground webinars coming up. You can always check out our events at musicbiz.org. So enough from me, because you're not here to see me. You're here to see Dimitri from Rock, Paper, Scissors and talk about B2B thought leadership. So Dimitri, thank you for being here today. Thank you for your support of our association. Always great to be in your presence. And I'm going to put myself on mute. I'm going to let you take it from here. And you have a co-presenter today who will be with us here shortly, and then a special guest. So lots of good stuff for our attendees today. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Nicole. Thank you, Music Business Association, and thank you all for joining me today on this conversation about B2B thought leadership in the music industry. My colleague, Trishka New-Year-Jaeger, will hopefully be joining us here soon. There were some technical difficulties, but we'll keep rolling with the punches, and so she may join in. She's the lead writer and lead strategist at Rock, Paper, Scissors. I'm the CEO and founder. We've been in business since the turn of the century. That's right, 1999. This is our 20th year. We started as a music PR company and continue to do that with a special focus on helping international artists break into the US, but have really expanded out the music tech and B2B music industry side of our business. We're a 20-person company in Bloomington, Indiana, midway between Nashville and Chicago, and we have clients all over the country and all over the world, ranging from bands in town, CD Baby, Lyric Finds, Super Hi-Fi, and about 24 of them total you can find on our website, rockpaperscissors.biz. So I'm going to jump in here and just talk about this stuff. I'll give you an agenda in just a minute, but in addition, at the end, we're going to bring on an attendee to do a little bit of kind of an experimental case study where we'll get to kind of ask them questions and help brainstorm and put into practice some of the stuff we've been talking about during the presentation. So what do we mean by thought leadership? I like to think about brand in general as the space that you occupy in people's minds, and particularly your business targets in this case. Thought leadership is really, it's kind of an overused cliche buzzword that I know some people are sick of hearing about, but the whole idea is, what is your reputation as a leader in thinking within your domain of expertise, within your industry and so forth? It comes in many forms, which we'll cover throughout this session today. But really it's a way of kind of translating your business, brand, and identity and domain expertise to you as an individual, as a leader, a CEO, a founder, possibly a biz dev person or a marketing person as well. And we'll get into the details, but generally speaking, that's sort of what we're talking about. And so let me tell you how we're going to break it down. So first, we're going to talk about the phases of awareness, which I think will help lead you into understanding what we're talking about with thought leadership. Then I'll give you an overview of what a roadmap would look like for developing thought leadership. I'm going to introduce you to something called the PESO model, which, if you haven't heard of, it's a very well-used term, as well as an example of thought leadership used in the PR industry to talk about different ways of thinking about media types: paid, earned, shared, and owned. And I'll go into detail there. Then we'll have a conversation about choosing platforms. What are the right platforms for what you're trying to accomplish? And then we'll do that live case study that I was talking about. I've got the question section of GoToWebinar open. I'm happy to see questions coming in. I'll try to answer them organically during the conversation. Sometimes it's better to have those questions in conjunction with what we're talking about versus waiting until the end and trying to remember what it was I was talking about, or for you to remember where we were in the conversation. Okay, so, and also feel free to put any kind of other types of things about the logistics of the technology on the webinar. If anything's not working, if you can't hear me, things like that, we'll monitor that for that as well. So appreciate it. Okay, so this is just something that I made up as I was thinking about how do I convey what we do on a pretty regular basis for our B2B clients as it relates to thought leadership, which are these phases of awareness. It starts with zero awareness, right? If nobody's ever heard your name, heard of your company, knows anything about your expertise, that's where you're starting from, right? I would say recognition is they've at least heard your name or your company's name. There's an awareness that you exist, but maybe they don't know exactly what you do. They don't really have an opinion about you. I would say neutral would be the phase of awareness in which they actually know what you do and they don't have a positive or negative thing about you so much. It's more they're just like, okay, yeah, that's Rock, Paper, Scissors. They're a music tech PR firm, or that's Music Business Association. They're a trade group for the music industry. Then I would say you move up, as you generate more thought leadership, you move up to fertile, which means that they're kind of interested. They're more curious. They want to know more. It's not just that they're aware of what you do, but they're sort of like, oh, I need to be associated with them. I either need to follow what they're talking about, or I need to find out more, or maybe I need to eventually have a conversation with them. And desire is the final phase of awareness where somebody, what you're thinking of in thought leadership probably is they want to know you. They want to do business with you. They want to be closer to you. They want to be associated with you. But there is a slight flip side with that, which is they might be jealous of you as well. So you will find as you move through the phases of this awareness around thought leadership, desire comes with kind of an evil backside as well, where, you know, people get pissed when other people are successful, or they get jealous or whatever. That's actually an indication that you're doing pretty well as well. So those are the phases of awareness. So how to use thought leadership to move people through those phases of awareness. I would like to show you a bit of a roadmap that I put together over the last 24 hours to help you think through. This is a bit of kind of like a boot camp working session for you. I know that I'm the only one on camera, I'm the only on audio, but I would love it if you could take some notes in this next portion to start applying directly what we're talking about. Because if you just listen in right now, or if you're doing email or Slack or whatever it is right now, and you're not engaged with the process, you're not going to remember this stuff. But if you actually take notes, and hopefully most of you should have gotten an email from me today where I sent you a Google Doc that is an outline of this session. So you can open up that Google Doc, copy it, and actually start taking notes right in Google, or copy it and put it in Word, or if you want, maybe you have a printer, print it out and start jotting notes down as well. This will help you lock in the learning of what I'm talking about today. So let's jump into the roadmap. By the way, also throw in a question if I'm talking too fast. Oh, someone's asking me to share the Google Doc. Let's see if I can do that while on screen here. I think I'm gonna struggle to do that. Fabian, I know you asked for that. I sent in an email in advance. I'll try to see if I can do that, but I've got my PowerPoint going. It's gonna be hard for me to close that down and then get the Google link to you. All right, so we're gonna jump into the roadmap. So I want to talk about these 5 things. We'll go through each of them in detail. First, I want to ask the question about what impact you want to have in terms of thought leadership, and we'll go into that. Then I want to ask, what are the targets that you're looking for? Who are the people? Oh, good. Some people just posted this. Let me see if I can snag it here. Thank you to those of you who posted that. All right, there it is. It's in the chat, is the Google link. Thank you, Maya and Sarah, for posting that in the chat and the questions. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to talk about targets. Who are the target people that you're trying to go after with this thought leadership? Next is, what are the attributes of yourself? This is not like personas of who you're marketing to, but what are the attributes that you want to be known for in thought leadership? To think through, how are you going to use thought leadership to convey something about you, about your strengths in your company? Fourth, we'll ask, where are these target people that you're trying to gain desire from? What is their location? Where do they live? And then the fifth piece of this is your natural medium. Are you a writer? Are you a video person? Are you an audio person? Are you a graphics person? Because it doesn't really make sense to go down a path that doesn't feel natural to you, that's not innate to you. If you're not a very good writer, you probably shouldn't be doing a blog. If you're not comfortable on video, you probably shouldn't be doing this webinar thing or YouTube or so forth. So I'm going to go through each of those in more detail, and I would love it if you would take notes for yourself. Make this a work session for you. Okay, we're going to start with impact. So what impact do you want thought leadership to have on your career or business? Some of you might be attending this particular conversation because you're interested in your own individual career. That's totally fine. I won't tell your bosses that's why you signed up, but you may want to develop your personal brand for job hunting, career development, and so forth. Totally fine. Just good to know that as you're doing thought leadership. And related to that is personal brand equity. Maybe it's not necessarily job that you're hunting for a job right now, but you want to kind of build your best self in a public sort of way, whether it'll be for a future job or career, or it might be for your own entrepreneurship. You might be working as a leader in somebody else's business now, and you're perfectly happy to do that, but you also want some personal brand equity to bring along with you if you start your own business, or even if you work at another company as well. Having a business launch is another one. You know, if you have just launched a business, then obviously you're trying to get attention for potential customers, users, clients, possibly for partnerships or investment, that sort of thing as well. Leads generation is a kind of a specific subset of that, and it's not necessarily only for new businesses, but for any businesses as well. So you might be looking for partners, clients, users, customers, or possibly investors as well. So to be clear, am I getting attention from my business overall, or I want specific leads in one of these categories? You may have an existing community of customers, users, partners, whatever it is, and so you might want to use thought leadership to keep their attention on you versus competitors. So say you're, a user-generated music audio service where people share their audio or their video, you might want thought leadership so people continue producing and creating content within your app or platform as well. Business brand building, that's kind of the equivalent of the personal brand equity, but for your brand as well. Maybe you're not specifically needing leads or community engagement, but you just know that you want to be kind of like a household name, and everybody's talking about you kind of thing. Here's one that smaller companies don't think about, but bigger companies really do. Are you trying to have an impact on your existing team, your employees? It can be great for building pride and retention for employees. It can also be great for talent recruitment for when you do have job openings. Maybe you do have job openings now, and that level of thought leadership could be about building culture of leadership, shared ownership, things like that. And then finally, on my list is business acquisition. Are you looking to be acquired? Do you want to use thought leadership to get somebody interested in what you have to offer for an acquisition, or vice versa? You might want to do thought leadership because you want to acquire other companies or catalogs, rights, and so forth. We've seen this work extremely well in thought leadership if you want to be acquired. We've seen companies that have actually sort of needled a larger company to say, you've got a problem and we've got the solution, and you needle them enough so they say, you know what, let's not build it, let's just buy this company and solve that problem. So hopefully you're still with me. Feel free to chat if I'm going too fast, or again, if you have questions as well. All right, so that's impact. This is a very simple slide. This is a minute for you to think about. So who are your primary targets? In impact, I asked you to think about which of these types of things are you trying to do with thought leadership. So hopefully you circled one, wrote one down, at least made note of one. Now think about who are the primary 1 to 3 targets for the impacts you want. Is it a customer? What type of customer is it? Is it a record label? Is it an artist? Is it a publisher? Is it a consumer? This is more focused on the B2B business to business side of things. But if you're more of a consumer facing thing and you want to develop thought leadership around that, you can go that direction too. So go ahead and take a second and write down a few types of companies, types of roles or types of people that you want to target. All right, hopefully you've got something there, or if not, put a big question mark and make sure you come back to it, or a checkbox that you're going to come back to that as well. All right, now let's talk about what attributes that you want to evoke in your targets. It's good to have a sense of this rather than just starting to blog or do social media or LinkedIn posts or podcasts or anything with no particular vision of how you're going to go about or what kind of content you want to do. What are the attributes that you want to represent when people read about you? Do you want to be known as smart and knowledgeable? Do you want to be known as creative, connected, profitable? You might be thinking of all these things as related and you're like, yes, yes, and yes. But honestly, being smart and knowledgeable and being creative are not the same. And you wouldn't necessarily show them the same way in your thought leadership. Creative requires you to demonstrate that you're good at coming up with lots of ideas. Whereas knowledgeable might be, hey, you can explain the difference between what a PRO does and what neighboring rights are, and what types of investment can be done for music companies and all that kind of stuff. You might want to just show that you're a results-driven person, that you're going to use your thought leadership to demonstrate that you've gotten results or that you're good at coming up with solutions. You might want to show that you're very disruptive, or you might really not want to show that. You might realize for what your goals are, if you're job hunting, sometimes people don't want a disruptor as an employee, but investors might want a disruptor as a founder. That you're helpful, depending on the role, that you're winning. Like there's a lot of people who use thought leadership to show their constant success after success. Or maybe like these tarot cards here, you want to show that you're a futurist, that you're somebody who's looking towards the future and can kind of predict what's going to be next, or at least explore those things. These are just examples. Don't feel like you have to limit yourself to these attributes. So where are you going to find these targets? Now, some of you might already have an email list, social following, and so forth, and all you really need is content to put in there. Maybe you've you're collecting emails or you're collecting followers and things like that. Maybe you already have users, but you want to demonstrate thought leadership. So maybe where they exist is on your existing email list. Or maybe you need to build a list of targets. And so that's something to think about, the role of gating content, of building an email list, a mobile SMS list, direct connections on LinkedIn that you can message directly and so forth. Do you want to broadcast to someone else's lists? Now, typically, I think this is what most people are thinking of. I just don't want to undermine the whole email and direct connection side of things. Works super well in B2B. We use it all the time at Rock, Paper, Scissors. But if you are thinking about using other people's lists, one thing is social media platforms. Where do your targets live? If you're looking at B2B targeting in the music industry, personally, I find LinkedIn to be the best, and we'll talk about that later. But you know, some of you have been on Facebook for 10 years already, and you've been building your business network there, or Twitter, you have a lot of followings too. And then I think a lot of you are probably thinking about this, and we'll get into this. What media do your targets read? And we'll get into specifics there, but we're looking at trade magazines, business, tech, consumer publications, all that kind of stuff as well. So think about where you're going to find those folks. This is the part about your natural medium. What are your best mediums for content creation? Think about whether you're good at writing short little posts or long posts, whether you want to try out audio like a podcast or radio, or video like recorded YouTube vlogging, you know, seminars, whether they're live or recorded or both. The other one that obviously is tough to think about right now, given the lockdown and that music biz was just moved into an online digital version coming up, is the in-person side. But that's huge for B2B music industry. And we'll talk a little bit about the types of conferences, trade shows that are great for that. PR is another great medium. Are you making announcements? We're not going to go into tons of detail about PR, even though it's the primary thing of what we do. And we sort of think of thought leadership as a kind of a tangent, a spin-off from that. but we'll talk about it a little bit because it does overlap, getting people to write about you based on your thought leadership. And then content marketing, all of this is kind of content marketing, but there's some other examples that I'll share with you as well. Okay, I want to take a little break to tell you about the peso model. It's something that any PR professional knows really well. A lot of advertising professionals know as well, but it'll help you wrap your mind a little bit around the difference between advertising and PR and thought leadership, actually. So peso stands for paid, earned, shared, and owned. This was also a great example, brilliant example of thought leadership. It's another PR company called Spin Sucks that developed this model, and now the entire PR, marketing, and advertising industry uses it all the time. So every time somebody talks about this, she's developed her, a woman named Ginny Dietrich has developed her thought leadership. It's brilliant. Paid media is advertising. That's advertising traditional form, whether it's billboards, physical billboards on the highway, or print magazines or television ads, but also obviously all the stuff where ads are now. Facebook, Google, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, all that stuff is paid media. Earned media is what we do as a PR firm most of the time. That's where you convince an existing media outlet, a billboard, a Polestar, a Rolling Stone, a New York Times, or Wall Street Journal to write about you, or for us, a client of ours. That's earned media. The idea is you don't automatically get it. I've had people call us for PR and say, I don't really understand the difference between advertising and PR. Then we explain the difference between paid and earned. And then they say, well, can we advertise in such and such? And I say, well, we don't do advertising. So it's important to understand some of that stuff is paid, some of that stuff is earned. You have to pitch and convince, or hire somebody to pitch and convince them. There's no money exchanged, although see this overlap here, there's some blurry stuff there. And then there's shared media, which is basically social media. Anytime you're sharing content, that's shared, and that one actually has quite a bit of overlap with these other two. Owned media is when you post it on your blog, your podcast, your video channel, all those things, that's your own media. You own that space, but you also frequently share it on social media. So you put it on your blog and then you share it, or somebody writes about you in Forbes and then you share it. Not very often will you pay for an ad and share it, but sometimes that's why it's there. So anyway, that's the peso model. Hopefully it helps you just think about some of the differences between how you approach any type of media, including when you're doing it with thought leadership. So what are the right platforms for your thought leadership? This is the details of where you're gonna put this stuff on the thought leadership, the owned stuff and shared stuff. So I realize this is a ton of info and I talk fast, so hopefully you've got that outline and you can refer to that as well. I'll be glad to share this PowerPoint with you, although it's just a prettier version of the outline. It's the words in between that kind of explain what we're talking about. Okay, like I said, I believe that LinkedIn is the most powerful social media for B2B in the music industry. People are there to do business. They're authenticated, they're verified, you know their role, what type of company they work with, and what their role is within that company. You don't see that stuff on Facebook. You don't always see it on Twitter. Instagram is a whole other ball of wax. Now, granted, you can post your beautiful pictures and use it for thought leadership. And if you're on the celebrity side, on the talent side, Instagram makes a ton of sense. Instagram is not well optimized for words. I don't use Medium, but I know there are people that use Medium quite a bit. It's kind of like a blogging platform, but it does have a social element. People do follow each other on Medium, and then some people post on Medium and then post those mediums to LinkedIn as well. Twitter, if you started at the right time, you probably have a good following there. If you've targeted and built relationships with people in business, it's great for B2B too. We see a lot of music industry use on Twitter as well. In a way, you can almost think of as Twitter as short form, Medium as long form, and LinkedIn as in between the two. But you can also do LinkedIn articles is a great tool as well. I count YouTube as social media, and I think it's super relevant to the music industry. People are tuned into what's going on there. Interestingly, there's not a lot of social media on the audio side. There's some folks that are trying. Companies like Stationhead and even Pandora and Spotify have podcasts there, but they don't really have strong social component. And then there's the other stuff. I don't want to say none of these things are good because, for example, there are people who have developed a lot of leadership on Reddit and Quora by answering lots of questions and demonstrating their thought leadership there. Email listservs I don't know, some of you are probably too young to know what this is, but before the web, there are these email discussion groups. Google Groups is an example of one where you sign up for an email and and everybody's everyone who posts to that email gets to send it out, like syndicate to everybody. There's a famous music industry one called PHO, P-H-O, really great one if you're into copyright and tech and rights in the music industry. It has thousands of people. You will get probably 100 emails a day from it. And there's a lot of leaders there. So participating in some of those places is also great for thought leadership. The other thing is the power of the new and being the first. Sometimes what when a new social media app comes out, you might grab market share before it really grows, and you kind of grow with it. We've seen that happen with Vine, TikTok, Snapchat, obviously Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. A lot of the folks that did something unique there and became the leader of that at that time stayed with it. They had the short username, they built the audience early, and that audience just multiplied over time. So I don't discourage you from trying new stuff out, but you also have to manage your time and how much time you have to do. So if you have no idea where to start, I highly recommend LinkedIn and Twitter for text and photo and article sharing and that sort of stuff. So if your natural medium is writing, where do you put that stuff? Company blog is a definite. This is where we get to the own media, the O in peso, right? Although I will say that if you want to do guest posts and op-eds, that's where you have, say, a Billboard magazine and you pitch somebody there saying, hey, could I do a guest article? I don't need to get paid. I just want to share this concept I have for the future, how to respond to COVID in venues right now, where things are going for independent artists in the future, why I think Spotify needs to change how they pay out rights holders, any of those types of things. I would not suggest posting that on your blog before pitching a guest post or an op-ed, because those media outlets want you to direct all of your audience and network to their outlet. So company blog is a great place to post your first 10 articles, testing things out, seeing what people are reacting to, and feeling like you're consistently giving good content. Excuse me, but at some point you also may consider wanting to go after somebody else's audience, and that's what guest post op-eds. And then if you're doing it on a regular basis, a guest column, where you're actually trying to convince an outlet to let you do a weekly or a monthly column on a particular beat within whatever they cover. Again, you can post directly to LinkedIn and Medium. Articles are great for that. You can also do short form, just little tidbits. Obviously, really short form is good for Twitter. And you see a lot of activity during trade conferences like Music Biz with the hashtag, where you can live tweet what's going on in a conference, and people think, wow, they're always at these great conferences picking up all these tips and helping me and so forth. And then having your own email newsletter is huge as well. It's kind of like a company blog, but it lands in people's inboxes. Very, very useful tool for B2B music industry folks.
Dimitri, sorry. I was just hey, I'm actually
Tristra.
Hey.
Meet Tristra.
Hey, I was gonna weigh in just to hi everybody. Sorry to slip into the webinar on the D-Lo. I was gonna speak to the writing thing really quickly because I know we don't have a ton of time. When you're thinking about where to put stuff, how to think about your writing, some quick guides. So if you want to talk about a bigger issue that is causing you a lot of concern in the industry, something you really feel like you can speak to and give a big picture perspective on, that's when you want to think about an op-ed. If it's super in the weeds, super technical, you may be able to find a niche publication where that's a good fit. Most of the time, that is more of your LinkedIn and what you'd be sending out to the other people who are as deep in the weeds and love the inside baseball stuff, here to mix some metaphors. A guest column is a huge commitment. It's something you want to walk into knowing I have like a year's worth of ideas and I have time to deliver something, because you do usually have to deliver it regularly and you don't want to burn bridges with an outlet. And last but not least, your blog is your place where you can get a little more personal, a little more human. And again, that wouldn't maybe be the best fit. While you do want to weave in your own perspective into an op-ed, obviously, you may not be able to tell the full story of your human existence there, and you may be speaking more of someone who's taking a stance or presenting a thesis about the business. Okay, sorry. Thanks, Dimitri.
Oh yeah, sorry, Trisha. On my screen, I don't actually see who's on video, so I didn't realize you were here. Thanks for.
Yeah, it's all good.
Now I know to call on Trisha. Trisha New Year Yeager, she's our lead writer, lead strategist at Rock, Paper, Scissors, been with us for 13 plus years and is an amazing brain on this and an amazing writer too. So I'm going to try to run through some of this stuff a little more quickly because I want to make sure we have time to bring on our guest as well. Audio, this is a little bit more of an ask for most people because there's a little bit of a technology hurdle. I do the Music Tectonics podcast. So in addition to Rock, Paper, Scissors, we have our own kind of media brand, Music Tectonics. We do a podcast, a blog, we do conferences, and we do a lot of these online meetups. We just did a 2-day forum on pivoting during this time and adapting or doubling down and so forth. But I do an MVP, a minimum viable podcast, and I just want to let you know it is a great, great tool. I like it versus writing. I'm pretty confident and comfortable in my writing, but I take a lot of time to edit it and get it perfect. And what I find with audio is that people expect some informality, a little more conversational. And so if I book a half-hour podcast and I've got other folks that help me with the editing and marketing of it, it really doesn't take tons of my time. Just want to point out, if you are going to go down that route, I personally suggest using Libsyn to syndicate out. That allows you to go to all the podcast outlets, the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, all that stuff in one place. But if you really want to do the even more minimum, Spotify bought a company called Anchor that allows you to do a podcast directly from your phone and get it online quickly. So that's available. I want to point out a great book by a guy named Stephen Wessner called Profitable Podcasting. This is using podcasting as a Trojan horse. It's less about building audience for your podcast and using invitations to get people that you want to target on a B2B level onto your podcast, interview them, and then you create a relationship. They get a chance to see your thought leadership one-on-one, and then you build an audience at the same time. I do mention the analytics on podcasts are pretty rough. They're not as good as what you're used to in, say, your Spotify artists or label accounts, Pandora artists and label, Apple Music, all that stuff. So it's a little frustrating. And then, of course, the other thing about podcasts are getting on other people's podcasts. Real quickly on video, obviously YouTube is where everybody is. But I'm also super intrigued with Wistia and other white label formats where you can control and get more data about who's using it. You can control, you could put your own ads on or no ads. Obviously, you've got the recorded side versus the live side webinars. We do something called a weekly Webs Day, which is actually a meetup. And that's kind of an interesting approach to getting yourself on video by building community. So you can check out Music Tectonics Weekly Webs Day as an example of that. And then, of course, there's getting on other people's video channels. I don't have a ton of expertise in video, so I'm not going to go into it, and I want to make sure to get through this. Public speaking, there's a lot of different ways to go about doing this. Even just at conference, most of these are conference related. At conferences alone, the low-hanging fruit and usually easy way to get started is by doing one-on-one mentoring. A lot of conferences allow that, and sometimes you get a discounted or a free badge as a result of that. It's a good way to get your name out there and to practice the one-on-one thing. And then these next two, moderating and being a panelist, is the next step up. The cool thing about moderating is if you're good at facilitating conversation, you don't necessarily have to be a thought leader on day one, but you get associated with other thought leaders. It gives you an excuse to invite panelists, and it's really helpful for the conference organizer to know that they've got somebody who's well-versed in keeping a conversation going. But there is a skill to that as well, and it would be good to be thoughtful about how to balance your panels, how to have audience engagement, how to make sure that you're meeting the goals of the conference, and then you get asked to come back again and again. Panelist is obviously another one. When you have some domain expertise, great to start doing some public speaking around that. So keynote is a lot harder to do. You have to really demonstrate that you've done this well, that you're an expert, that you're going to sell tickets for a conference. Honestly, if you're getting hired buy a conference to do a keynote. You actually have to have enough of an audience. That's kind of like the pinnacle towards that might be why you're doing thought leadership, is because you want to do that level of public speaking. But so other things you can do, meetup host is kind of a lower hanging thing. If you're able to bring together a community around a domain of expertise, then that can be a super great way to get kind of on the conference agenda. You can do that formally by proposing to a conference. Maybe Music Biz has never had a children's music session at all. I have no idea, Nicole and Henrik, so apologies if you have, but maybe you say, hey, we want to do the children's music meetup, and then all of a sudden you become known as the children's music person at Music Biz, and then eventually Music Biz says, you know what, this person's really done great for us. They've got some expertise. They've learned about how to market to niche audiences. We'll have them on our marketing to niche audiences panel. Sponsorship, obviously, is another one. Spending money to get on stage is an option, and obviously conferences need, most conferences get at least half of their support from sponsors, not from badge sales. And doing off-site events can be good, like a VIP party. Sometimes that's part of sponsorship, sometimes it's not. Some conference organizers don't love it. Some of them don't have a choice, but there you have it. And then, you know, public speaking on webinars as well. These are some of the conferences you might be thinking about for speaking. Music Biz is a great one. South by Southwest, Meetum, ASCAP Expo, and DIY Musician Conference, which is CD Baby's conference. These two are tend to be more artist facing. This is our conference if you're more in music tech and innovation. And then you might do things like Live Nation's House of Blues / Music Forward Foundation has something called All Access Festival, which is a chance to practice public speaking for teens and 20-somethings that want to work in the music industry. It's a great way for you to get your feet wet, also helping out. A lot of people want to do public speaking to help, and this is helping young people, people from diverse communities think about going into the music industry performance. Also, think about doing something locally. Wherever you're based, you can set something up. You can do a meetup and kick it off with a short panel or a presentation. Great way to get some experience there. And we have a strong kind of value around becoming the hub by doing meetups, by doing online events, and we organize our own conference. The Music Tectonics Conference is actually a spinoff of us doing our own music tech innovation meetups at other conferences and in other cities, just on their own standalone. So I encourage that as a way of building thought leadership. Trish, do you want to take this next one?
Absolutely. So another obvious way to build your reputation, build your brand as a thought leader is to get some publicity. And we won't go too deep into how we approach that for B2B companies. But as an individual, if you're thinking about how can I get into more stories? How can I share what I know and my perspective with the press? We really love to do what we call opportunistic pitching. So we see a story about live streaming, and we will attempt to reach out to journalists and say, that story was really great. You covered this aspect of live streaming, but what about these artists that are taking this totally different approach, and they're creating these VIP experiences, and they're not free and open to all, but they've really got a really careful funnel, say going up that mirrors what you might see at a larger concert show for a prominent artist. So that's just an example, but basically looking at the stories that are already being told and figuring out how your view can be, how you can kind of pull up alongside or contribute to it or completely contradict it. Maybe everyone's getting it wrong. And journalists don't like to be told straight up that they're wrong, but they do enjoy hearing, hey, there's this other cool angle you could explore that you've already missed. And a lot of journalists, once they've started to cover a certain area or a story, they feel a little bit of ownership. And so they like to expand on it. And so if you're thinking that's totally cool. So, and then once you've done that long enough, people know like, oh, I can call this dude, I can text this gal, and I can do some really awesome things about music metadata, because everyone's writing stories about music metadata all the time. Anyway, music industry press, just a quick rundown. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it. Billboard, Polestar for live events, especially. Rolling Stone has radically expanded their music business coverage, and they do a lot of really cool pieces that often take really interesting perspectives. Got some great journalists there. Music Business Worldwide, I love their cheeky, fun stuff. It's also really good reads. They do in-depth profiles of people, and Billboard started doing that as well. Hypebot is another great place to start. They have sort of a side project called the Music Think Tank, where you can contribute your deep music industry thoughts. or if you have an interesting or innovative idea that's still in the, you want to work it out and to see if you can get some feedback from other people. So those are some basic places to start. Billboard, Polestar, Music Business Worldwide, and Hypebot all take contributed pieces. Rolling Stone, not so much. So, yeah.
I would say that, you know, just most people know, but Billboard is kind of the music industry, the recorded side, streaming, all that. Polestar is more on the live side. So if you're on the live side, Polestar is kind of the great place to be. And if you're on the recorded side, Billboard is. And Music Business Worldwide is right up there, kind of nipping at Billboard. I only put Rolling Stone in there because it is doing more coverage, like Trisha said. And then, you know, Music Think Tank is kind of like, you always see contributed content on Forbes. Well, Music Think Tank is the place to start with contributed content, meaning your guest stuff. And then you can kind of like graduate to Hypebot and kind of go up from there.
All right.
Trisha, do you want to talk about content marketing, or should I dive into that? And we need it. This is our last slide before we bring Fabian on.
Why don't you quickly run through it?
So we covered a lot of stuff, and I appreciate everybody hanging in there. It's a ton of information, and I'm going super fast just because I want to either answer questions or at least bring in our case study, our little experiment here. But there, just so you know, there's some other ways to do thought leadership around developing other content that you make available. Sometimes you do this with an email gate, just like you would with a record release, a single, or anything like that. Sometimes you just give it away just so that people know about it. So you might write a white paper. It's a more extensive article that gets downloaded as a PDF. Maybe you hire a designer to make it really nice. Or a report if you have a lot of data somehow in your business. That's a great way to generate some interest. If you're the ones, you'll see companies like our client PEX or our client Chartmetric will frequently take their data and create reports or white papers that other people are ingesting. Infographics, a graphical version of showing some of that stuff using pretty colors to get people excited, but to also express things in a really compelling way. You might build a checklist for the industry of some sort. We just built a checklist called the Music Tech Pivot Checklist. So for music tech companies that are trying to figure out how to adapt and adjust under COVID and lockdown, to go through this checklist to think about what are some other ways to think about their business. Directories and guides. You've seen the unofficial guides to South by Southwest. We've done one like that for APAP, the Association of Performing Arts Presenters, where we'll help booking agents and promoters and presenters all go one place to find a certain genre of music. Or interactive experiences. Some people get really elaborate, and even playlists you could consider with that. Henrik, if you could bring Fabian on with us, that'd be awesome. So we're going to do a little experiment in the last few, I guess, 13 minutes we have here. Sorry, Fabian, was hoping to do a little bit more, but I just packed too much in. So the idea here is to bring one of you attendees in and kind of ask questions and show you how we might structure the whole thought leadership concept here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen if I can figure out how to do that. And Fabian, can we bring Fabian? He's paused.
You're looking quite bright today, Fabian.
Do you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you. I don't know why.
I'm so used to shortcuts on Zoom. This is a whole other thing here.
No, right?
Well, the camera is shared. So I'm not sure what this, maybe today I'll just go yellow.
Okay, well, all right, Fabian, let's get started. First, you want to start or should I start?
You start.
Well, you want to start? Okay, you start, Dimitri. The yellow, the yellow guy.
Well, Fabian, real quickly, why don't you explain? Uh-oh, we're looking at your screen somehow.
I don't know how that happened. Let's get that off.
Real quickly, why don't you explain what Bitfury Surround is?
Sure. Bitfury Surround is our company Surround is connected to a large Bitcoin mining company called Bitfury. Bitfury invested a chunk of money into Surround, and Surround is building out a database that would allow for artists to have a digital identity to connect to the metadata of all of their music. We're creating partnerships with the Spotify's, Apples, and Amazons of the world and publishing companies internationally with the aim that in the future, all artists will have the ability to get their micropayment directly into their digital wallet for the use of their songs and videos, versus waiting 3 to 6 months for that money to funnel through the ASCAP, BMIs, and Harry Foxes of the world. Additionally, we're creating a music technology marketplace that'll connect the dots for artists to use all of their various stems and digital collectibles to funnel those things through a whole world of music tech companies.
Great.
Cool. And what, we've talked a little bit, Fabian, when are you launching these various products and ecosystems?
We are starting to do this entire thing. Hey, here we go. We got the camera.
Hey, there you are.
All right. Figure it out. The preferences. We're launching the beta come October, and the full-fledged platform will start rolling out come Q1 of 2021.
So this would be a great time to start working on some thought leadership and sort of build maybe a cadence towards the launch. Is there anything in particular that, one thing I want to throw out there for you, Fabian, is that the technology base that you're working with, blockchain, cryptocurrency, is very poorly understood. There's a lot of mixed messages out there, a lot of complicated media coverage. So I don't know if that's something that you think about a lot, but you've been deep in the music industry, and now you have this new, you're engaging with this new, quite unfamiliar technology. So it might be, I'm wondering if there's anything that you've been thinking about that we might want to get out there, either on your personal channels or in more public channels.
So as I've been listening in, the thought of my public channels have been on my mind. As you both know, I used to be an A&R guy. I used to produce festivals, DJ'd all over the planet, all that business. And I have an email list of about 50,000 people that I've just collected over the last number of years, but it's been dormant for 2 years. Granted, most of those people were out buying tickets to concerts and festivals that I was doing, or for DJ events. And now that I'm no longer in the business of selling tickets for anything, and I've hung my hat and retired my DJ career, the idea is like, how do I pivot the narrative to those people who are on that list because they were interested in buying tickets to events? And what do I do? Will they really be interested in, here I'm working in the music technology space? What is that story that would actually capture them?
What that really brings up is the idea about segmenting your lists. And if you've got 40 or 50,000 people on the email list and they are not segmented by music industry folks, it's going to be quite a project. However, the ones that are interested in where you are going and so forth would be very good to target, especially since I know the whole time you were DJing and doing festivals, you were going to South by Southwest and Music Biz and Womex and APAP and all these conferences. And I think it would be, I would consider maybe writing a couple of blog posts about the journey as DJ, as festival presenter, about curation and what your role was there and how you personally got interested in these other things. And then maybe a 2 to 3 part piece that you email to them to warm them up. And then the fourth message is, I'm now going to be talking about my current journey. And I'd like to invite you to either stay on the list or unsubscribe from the list if you're not interested. Give people a way that they could say, I want to stay in the mix if you're ever DJing or booking a festival, but I don't want to read about blockchain. I mean, there's 2 ways to do it. One is to say, please subscribe to this new list and start from scratch. And maybe you'll convert, I don't know, 5% of those people, and they'll be music industry folks who are interested. The other option is to say, this list is changing. And the only problem with that is you will have people unsubscribe who you'll never get back again. So one of those 2 decisions. But I would encourage you to kind of blog from a personal perspective at first to move people over.
And you're saying to the blogging aspect, to post that, to send that to my email list. Yeah,
or a link to it.
Yeah, I think maybe having a shorter bite-sized version for the email list would be good, because there's a long story there. And especially if it's in several parts, they may just get annoyed, and you don't want to annoy them. You want them to, you want to engage with them. I mean, sometimes you want to annoy them, but this isn't one of those cases. So, and maybe just have, deciding the length. I mean, I would say for an email, you're looking at like 3 paragraphs. Plus, you could link to the full story. And I don't know. I mean, more than like 3 contact attempts would be maybe a little much. And always, but I mean, you can also have the unsubscribe option at the end of every email. And that could be really interesting. I would actually love to see the results, both like opens and then unsubscribes, or the other option, they have to opt into something. That can feel much more respectful too, and easier for people, because sometimes people don't want to tell you that they don't want to hear from you, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. I would love to hear how that experiment might turn out. Is what are you gonna say, Dimitri?
Oh, Fabian, you said something, and I think Trista's audio cut you off. Were you saying something else?
Oh, no. I was agreeing with her, because
Okay.
the idea of how to be able to entice the list to stay on, it really is part of the narrative, because the story is not, hey, I'm pivoting right now, and you're going to pivot with me quickly. The idea is to be able to invite them into the story, and to be able to illustrate a new narrative in terms of where my life is going, because that email list was, here's my DJ thing, I'm going to be over here, I'm presenting this concert, et cetera, and now it's a bit different.
What are some of the topics that you think create resistance for people to engage with where you're going with Bitfury Surround?
I mean, look, I think when people hear the word blockchain, some people run directly towards me, or they want to run the other way because they think of cryptocurrencies and the volatility of the market. But it's a lot of that comes based on a lack of understanding of what the technology can actually do. And, the building of what the future of the internet is going to look like. The pipes are being built right now, and a lot of that is going to be based on the technology around blockchain. And I think over the next 5 years, we're going to see really some significant changes in how apps and the web operate. And if we think that, over the next 5 years, there's probably going to be another, 3 billion more people getting onto the internet, because they're young and they're becoming college students and all of that, and they're going to be engaging with music and entertainment and all of these different types of entertainment assets. The pipes are being built right now, and Bitfury is really building all that out. The whole Surround team is getting those things in place with an eye on where the future is heading for entertainment and how artists are going to be paid. So I think, in the universe where we live now, where we have, multiple apps and they're spread out everywhere and all of our assets are all over the place, the idea that we can keep them all in one house and invite all the various technology companies into this, this campus where all of those assets are able to play around and move around that ecosystem and then be broadcast out into the planet is really interesting to see what that could actually mean for all the stakeholders of all of this digital media.
Go
ahead,
Tristra.
Nope, you.
Well, we've just got a few minutes left, but what I think the biggest resistance I've seen in the music industry, when I'm at Music Biz or South by Southwest or Meet 'em, the biggest resistance I've seen is people don't understand about the interoperability of any particular platform. The concern that, yeah, all this would be great, but how are we going to get everybody to play together? My understanding is you guys are trying to build those pipes. And I think, part of the thought leadership goal would be for people to first really understand what the problems are that you're trying to solve, and not even with any mention of blockchain at all, to really focus on a few of the top changes that are going to result, and not focus on blockchain at all, and then lead people down this path of what if there was this system that did this thing, and to show the possibility of what is the moment of when that would actually work.
And I think that
what it would take.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is going to be, here's a new platform with superpowers. That's all it is. I've been dropping the conversation around what the engine looks like. When you're buying a car, it's not a regular thing that you start asking about the engine unless you're a real car person. You're just looking at the functionality of it and what it could actually do. And I think in this aspect, in regards to where technology is going, it's not a normal thing for people to ask what's under the hood. And internally, when you're dealing with investors and they start asking those questions, then you're able to lead by example and show the example of how the tech actually works and connects to everything.
Right.
The connection point is really important too, I think, because a lot of the rhetoric around blockchain startups has been quite, the disruptors, right? The quite somewhat adversarial to the legacy business or the businesses that currently exist. And I like that your spirit is more along the lines of, let's just move in this new direction. We don't have to disrupt the relationships. There's a lot of good, stable things that we want to keep, that we need to just translate into a form that will work more fluidly and more transparently for more people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we got about 1 minute left. Any final questions, Fabe? Tristan, any final comments before we wrap up here? Thanks for coming on screen, Fabian. I know we got you in last minute, and appreciate you doing that.
Always here for you, Dee. Tristan. Thank you.
I would just say that as you're thinking about all this, it can feel like I have to become something that I'm not. And I always counsel our clients to do and say the things that really mean things to them. So if you're passionate about it, that's where you should start. If it's something like, I feel like I should be saying this, set it aside and let it develop. But say what you want and say what you mean, and don't force it. So these things can take some time to develop. All right, enough woo.
All right, thanks everyone for joining. I see just at the last few minutes some questions came in. I didn't realize they were coming in so late. I'm really sorry, folks. Feel free to reach out to us. I posted our web links here. We'd be glad to do any follow-up. You can contact us at rock, paper, scissors at the website, rockpaperscissors.biz. In case I'm at music@rockpaperscissors.biz. If you have follow-up questions, I'm sorry we didn't get to those. Nicole, Henrik, thank you so much for having us. I don't know if you have any closing words you want to present to the attendees.
I just wanted to thank the three of you for presenting this today. Lots of great information. I learned a lot as well. So thank you so much. Stay safe, everybody, and we will see you back on the Common Ground webinar series, hopefully very shortly. Take care.
That was great. Thanks, everyone. Bye.